Hello light workers, how are you today? Welcome to Friday. Today, this is a potpourri or a potpourri of things. Today I'm talking about flowers, I'm talking about the Akashic records, I'm talking about fasting, suffering and spiritual healing. I'll see you on the other side. So while we talk, I'm going to be having a drink as well. I hope you don't mind. It's been a busy day today, and I normally record this a lot earlier. This is a Thursday. I record the Friday video on a Thursday, but it's been mega busy. So I'm just settling down now, ready to be able to share some things with you. Flowers. Look, when I go running, and I think some of you have seen this, I stop at a place and where I do a little bit of kind of prayer, meditation, whatever, gratitude. And I often give gratitude to nature, the nature that's around me, because I see it and I think, wow, these plants and these trees have been doing the same thing, giving us oxygen for years and years and years and years without fail. Nature never lets us down. Never lets us down. So I was kind of thinking about that and pondering on the fact, how beautiful everything has been arranged for us. And it's spring now here, so it will, in the whole northern hemisphere it's spring. And what I was aware of was that lots and lots of the gorse bushes that are around in the area that we have, they're starting to flower. And when I looked at them closely, what I noticed was that in each plant, bush, maybe there were only 4 or 5 flowers that had flowered. The rest were all in buds. They were all ready, but they were buds. And I thought, isn't that just like where we are now? The flowers, the ones that had flowered had really flowered. They were way out, pointing up to the sun. And they're like us. The flowers that have already blossomed, they're like us. And some of the very early ones are like those who have woken up right at the beginning, long before anybody else did. And so we are like those flowers. We are the first. We are the early birds. We're the ones that are there when the rest are still in bud. And what's interesting about the flowers and this is something I noticed, the flowers that are out the bugs are all over them. The insects are all over them. Why? Because they're the only flowers that have dared to come out. And then of course when all the flowers are out, well, then everyone gets equal attention. And I know that the bugs, it's a positive attention, but if we look at it as a metaphor now, it's like we are the ones that get attacked a lot for our beliefs because we are the only ones that have bloomed and blossomed. But everybody's going to do that eventually. All the buds are there. All the buds are there, just waiting for the sun to shine. And the sun's got a lot to do with the energetic change that's happening in the world. So I thought it was a nice metaphor that was kind of given to me as I was giving thanks to nature. So we are the blossoming flowers, and we're covered in insects, surrounded by them, bugs everywhere. So I wanted to talk to you now about the Akashic records. Now, in the last video I was telling you about my desire to start accessing the Akashic records. I've known about them for a long time. I've used them in my hypnotic therapies with people. We visited them, or should I say they have. But of course with hypnosis, when you do it, you're very rarely done unto. And so I never had that opportunity. So I've been reading about, in the book that I explained, something how, about the rules and regulations of going up to the Akashic records. There aren't many, but obviously you've got to go with the right intent. And then what I've done is I've also found on Audible a hypnotic session to take you up there, which I like. In the book, it gives you a prayer, but I actually respond better to hypnosis because I've done it for so long. So I listened to this hypnotic induction guide up to the Akashic records. It was very long at the beginning. The induction, because on a recording, the induction has to be make sure you get there. I'm so accustomed to going into hypnosis that I don't need a long induction. So I actually skipped that bit and I just put myself in hypnosis and off we went. And I liked it because part of the process was going into water and going under the water and coming up, and each time being cleansed, almost like a baptism. And I thought that was nice. It was a nice metaphor, and that seemed to help to deepen the hypnosis. And then we went through a cave, and then we came to the halls of the Akashic records. Okay. Now for me, that was like looking at a very, very big old building with pillars, like an old library. And we went in, and in the middle for me, obviously it's different for everybody. It's whatever you imagine. But in the middle was a big table with a big book, and it was like one of those books, with the parchment like papers. And part of the book was written, but where the page was open was blank. And so the process is, right now's your time to ask questions. So I started to ask questions. Now, in the book, I was told, don't ask when questions, because time is not an issue up there. Time has nothing to do with anything. And I think we've talked about this before. The emissaries said the same thing, that time is not something that they can't say when, because it all depends on the energetic situation. Okay, it's to do with the energies and the vibrations, not time. So I asked, I wanted to say, when will all this be over? But I couldn't ask the when question because I was told it's not the right question. So I said, what has got to happen for this to be over? And as I asked that, the answer started to write itself out on the page. It appeared on the page. This is not the first time that I've experienced this. I've had this before in hypnosis, where basically it gets written out. It's very beautiful to watch. And the answer was this. It said, mankind will end this, or this will end for mankind when mankind returns to love, when mankind returns to unity, and when mankind returns to acceptance. Okay? And then it mentioned that mankind also has to learn to step into its sovereignty, our sovereignty. Okay? So let's look at those in turn. What's unusual about that is that those three things, love, unity, and acceptance, are what I pray for just about every day for mankind. That we learn to love one another, that we learn to accept one another, that we become united as one. And so it didn't surprise me that that's what came up. Now, you might say, and a possibility is, well, that was already in my mind, so therefore my mind was just creating that. But I don't believe that that's all that there is to it. And what struck me about it is this, and this is what strikes me about when I communicate with the emissaries. I keep getting the same answer. There isn't anything new. And sometimes I want something new. Tell me something new. Tell me. And it's just the same answer. The reason is because that is what is going to save us. When we start to love one another unconditionally, when we start to accept one another unconditionally, and when we begin to unite and understand that we are one, and that is stepping into our sovereignty. when our sovereignty is to understand that we are sparks, we are pieces of God, and therefore we are one. We are all the same. And that's why we all shit the same colour, because we're all the same. Right? Peel the skin off and everything, and we're just about the same. Yeah. So that was really interesting. That was my first delve into the Akashic records. I will be going back there many times, and I'll keep you posted on that. But the hypnotic induction is in Audible, right? It's in Amazon. You can download it. I don't know how much it would cost. Because I'm a member of Audible, I buy it with a credit. But maybe that would be a nice thing to do. Okay, why not? And remember that every time that you connect with that side, the other side, the beyond, that builds up that energetic connection with them. That brings you closer every time. Okay? Now, just a quick update on the fasting that I started on Sunday night, finished yesterday lunchtime. Let me tell you, lunch was divine. And I mean that in a spiritual way. Lunch was divine. Quite why, I don't know, but this was the hardest 2-day fast. It's actually 64 hours. It's more than 2 days, but it was the hardest one that I've done. It was very hard, and Cynthia did it as well, and we had some hilarious moments. Now I look back where we were arguing about the most ridiculous things in the world, like really, and it was all because we were stressed about not eating. But that aside, it's what a beautiful experience it is. And it does something to you when you fast and you don't eat for a couple of days. It shows you what you're capable of doing. I believe that we do not even know what our resources are, what resources we have. We don't even know what we are capable of. And when you put yourself to the test, and it was something that I decided to do when I got to 50. I said, I've achieved what I want to achieve in life. What am I going to do now? And my decision was, I'm going to make myself uncomfortable. I'm going to make my life uncomfortable. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean putting myself into uncomfortable positions, uncomfortable situations, putting myself to the test, testing my mettle. And I think it makes you into a better person. It makes you, when you understand that you are so much more capable than you ever thought you were, then it gives you a lot of self-belief. It's a very good process. So I recommend fasting. All right. Let me tell you, last couple of things. Suffering. I have had this, and let me tell you what's happening. I don't know if this is happening to you, but the amount of multiple messages of the same thing, like the repeated numbers, which are just out of this world now. Every time I look at the bloody clock, I'm seeing a repeated number. I didn't know there were so many repeated numbers in a day. But what I'm starting to get is that I'm having a conversation with somebody and they are saying some words that I've just had in another conversation, that I've just said or I've just heard. And I'm getting this incredible, duplication, tripling of messages. Now, when that happens, I take that message very seriously. That is a message for me. Okay, and I'm sure you have the same thought process. So, I have had a message about suffering. Okay, and it's all about waking up. Let me tell you the overview. I was listening to an audiobook by Anthony DeMello when I was out running, and the book Awareness, okay? And Anthony DeMello was saying, as a psychologist, his job was to alleviate the suffering of people. They would come to see him and he would help them to reduce the suffering. But in his role as a spiritual guide, a spiritual leader, he knew fine well that for people to change, for people to actually be able to wake up, in essence, they had to suffer. And it's the alleviation of suffering that stops people from waking up. It's people not having enough suffering for them to say, shit with this. This can't go on. And so he was saying, it's actually better to let people suffer and support them through the suffering. Absolutely. Support them through the suffering, but let them suffer, because it's through suffering that change occurs. Now, that was a message that I got from Anthony DeMello, and I thought, absolutely, very good. But I'd already had a conversation with the guys upstairs, and it was about our situation, my situation at the moment, and basically what happened was I was driven to set my life the way it is now, which was working from home, living in the countryside, homeschooling my children, okay, and being independent. Like, you know, we basically cut ourselves away from society in many respects. And I was talking to them, and they were saying, because I was saying, why is it that because of what we did, this situation isn't affecting us as it is affecting lots of other people, you know, who've got, you know, the children in school and they've got a job, and it's really affecting them. And the answer was, because you have already suffered what you needed to suffer. Okay? And rightly enough, when I was 40, I went through the worst suffering, the worst reset of my life. And it wasn't worse, it was the best reset of my life, but at the time I went through a massive amount of grief and suffering, and I woke up from it. That's what woke me up. And so they said, you've already done that process. And so yes, this is going to affect you. It has to affect you, the situation, but it doesn't need to affect you as much as it needs to affect other people. And what they were saying was, the people need to suffer enough so that they wake up. Okay, that's what they said. And this was long before I listened to Anthony DeMello, and I thought, wow, right, okay, so I understand why perhaps it's not needing to affect me as much as it affects some other people, because they need to suffer. Which brings me to the point about waking up. And I always say, it's not our job to wake people up. And that's because if you look at how you woke up, you didn't wake up because somebody forced you to wake up. Somebody coerced you into waking up. You didn't wake up because somebody said, you've got to wake up, man. You woke up because it was the right time for you to wake up. And very often it's because you have come through a situation where you bottomed out. Basically, you hit the bottom. We hit the bottom, and it can be on a spiritual level, it can be on a mental level, a physical level. We can hit the bottom where we say, I cannot live like this anymore. And that's where I was. I can't live like this anymore. And I know lots of you have got like that. It's where you die to the previous life. Literally. It's the baptism. You die to that life. I do not want that life anymore. I don't want this situation anymore. I can't live like this. And that's when you start again. Well, that is what's got to happen to everybody. They've got to bottom out. And that's why it's got to be horrible. And that's why it looks horrible to us as observers of it. We're already awake. But there are lots of people who aren't. And for them to wake up, they have got to suffer. So allow the process to happen. Let it happen. Let them suffer. All right? And understand, it sometimes it breaks my heart to see what's happening with people. What's happening with my family. The madness that my family is getting involved with. But when I look back at what happened to me when I had to suffer, it would break my heart to watch somebody go through what I went through. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I know that this suffering that's happening now is the best thing that's ever going to happen to mankind. Does that make sense? And so if we can keep that perspective in mind as we observe this madness that's going on, this horribleness, understand that that is the suffering that then wakes people up. That is the suffering that makes people say, this must end, no more. Okay. So, I think that's a really important thing to bear in mind. And if you were suffering at the moment, if you were suffering, understand that the suffering is there as a cleansing process to help you get to the other side, to help you to get somewhere much better. Really. It's a blessing. Remember, the monsters in our dreams are really angels. The suffering that's happening in this life is really a blessing. It's tough when you're going through it. So if you are going through it, I'm very sorry that you're going through it, but I'm also very glad that you're going through it, because I know it's going to take you to a better place. Okay? Last thing, I don't know how many of you know Stuart Watson. Stuart Watson is what you would call a faith healer. And I came across him when I saw him being interviewed by Charlie Ward. And I thought, wow, that's an interesting guy. And he's from Gateshead as well. And I thought, very interesting. I joined his Facebook page just to find out what was going on. And that was where I met Brenda. Hello, Brenda. And anyway, so Stuart is a very interesting guy. And wow, the feedback that he gets from his people about the healing that he does is exceptional. I haven't seen feedback like that before. Story after story of him, and he does it over the phone as well, not just presential, but over the phone. Story after story of people going, wow, Stuart spent some time with me and now I'm cured of this and cured of that. Stuart manifests stuff around him and he sees all kinds of stuff in the sky, and it's just, well, basically I'm going to interview him later on this month. And so you'll meet him and you'll be able to see what he's like. He's a real character. But I thought, I've been having problems with my shoulders for more than a year. Okay? Done all kinds of stuff. I've had loads of help. I've had help from healers. I've been taking the bushflower remedies thanks to Joe Kelly who suggested that to me. And all of it has been helping. But it hasn't taken it away. And so I thought, why not? I'll give Stuart I'll send Stuart a message and ask him if he'll do a session with me. Now I'm in Spain, he's in Gateshead. So I sent him a message, and as it happened, we started talking. It was 11:15 at night here in Spain, 10:15 there. And Stuart said, I can do it now. And I said, well, I'm just about to go to bed actually. But then Cynthia said to me, go on, just do it. So I said, okay, right, we'll do it in Skype, okay? So I phoned him with Skype. So what happened was, the session was nice. We chatted beforehand, we chatted afterwards. During the session, it's virtual silence. He's praying. I can hear his voice going sometimes in silence. But what happened? Well, what was bizarre about the whole thing was that just before, as I was talking to Stuart about meeting up, okay, I've noticed that the pain in my shoulders was not as pronounced. And because it's like one of those, it isn't a chronic pain, it's just that constant droning pain. And so I thought, I didn't even think about it, but when we sat down and I was sitting as Stuart was doing his stuff, I thought, you know what? Already they feel better. And then he said, okay, so you just sit there and see what you notice and I'll let you know when I'm finished. When he started, I got, because this was the worst shoulder, this tremendous heat around here, just a lot of heat. And it was almost like, if somebody had a hairdryer here and it was going up my face. Heat, loads of heat on my shoulders. And then he finished and he said, how do you feel? And I said, well, actually, I think I already felt something when I was just talking to you. And he goes, well, it happens that people say when I'm talking to them that they're seeing improvement. So what happened? Well, and by the way, his session cost £50, okay? Which in the scheme of things is very reasonable, I think, for what other people charge. So, and he did the session, and then I sent him the money, okay? So he was very trusting in that as well. But the discomfort went down by about 80%. I've still got a bit, but I know that has to do with the tension, that when you've got pain, you start getting tension in the muscles, and so the muscles get tense. And I'm going to go and see somebody who's going to take that away from me, because there's somebody up the road who does osteopath work, so I'm going to get that done. But instantly, the night I slept, and I noticed no pain in my shoulders when I was sleeping. I've noticed a better maneuvers when I'm putting my clothes on. I'm not getting that wah wah like that. So it worked. It worked. And I mean, Stuart, you'll see when we meet him, he saved people's lives. You know, people who were given a couple of hours left to live, and they're still alive today because he went to see them, etc. So, what is that? Now, Stuart says that he heals through Jesus. Okay? And that could well be the case. But you know, there's another side to healing, which is the placebo effect, which is the faith healing, which is, I believe so much in what you can do that I will heal myself because of that belief. Now, that is a tangible, real thing as well. Is that what happened with Stuart? I have no idea. I just know that after the session, I was better. Yes, I'd seen lots of reports. I believed that he had a skill. All right? But you know what? My take on this, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it works because he's channeling Jesus, or if it works because I believe that he's channeling Jesus. I couldn't give a shit what the truth is, because at the end of the day, if it has helped me, then it's worth it. Then it works. So, you know, because he uses Jesus doesn't mean I'm going to convert to Jesus and just talk about Jesus. But he's not the only one who's doing that, is he? And everything he does seems to work. And he's got this big long list of people who say it works. So there you are. So anyway, that's the situation with Stuart. We'll meet him a bit later on. Okay. And also I'm going to be chatting with Mark Atwood as well. So that'll be fun as well. Okay. There you are. That's everything I've got to tell you. I think, just to leave you, I think that everything's okay. And I think everything is on the right path. We're in the right direction. Everything's heading to where it ought to be. And remember that when we see the suffering, and even when we are suffering, it's always for good. It always leads to a better place. And so we needn't worry. And we can actually, when you understand that the suffering is there, like when you're in the gym and you're doing it, the curls, and your muscles are stinging, you're suffering. But you know why you're doing it, because you want to get big biceps. Well, it's the same. When you're suffering, understand that it's because it's leading you to a better place, and you will be a better person for it, and you will be a stronger person for it, and you will be a wiser person for it. And so trust the process. Okay, that's all. Have a lovely weekend, and may God be with you. And Jesus as well, because he could heal you.